People look at me as soon as I walk in and they're like, who is this guy? I look like I'm going to hurt somebody. I don't look like I walk into a place and I'm just coming to have a good time. I'm coming to eat lunch. When I walk in, it's like I'm literally going to hurt somebody.
Do you have experience in counterterrorism?
For about a decade. You get trained for almost a year straight, and you get trained worldwide. That's why I've been to over 80 countries. And then after that, whenever there is a problem, if there's a terrorist right now in France, I have to go catch him in France. I was almost killed multiple times, ready to have my head chopped off. So a lot of people at home will look at it and say that's bullshit. It's because all the social media is bullshit. But if they don't think that there's people that are assassins in the world to save the world so they can live the American dream, then they're out of their mind.
Have you ever anyone? Prefer not to answer.
All right, so here we have the pinnacle of alpha male delusion. I don't think it's possible to be a bigger bullshitter than this guy who goes by King Azuli. He seriously wants people to refer to him as King because he learned he's a descendant of King Solomon, and he says that's where he gets his wisdom from. That's how far up his own ass this guy is. It's hilarious.
We were talking earlier, and you're Israeli.
Yes.
And you just said you're a descendant of King Solomon.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is your first name's not King? Is it King?
No. Ben.
Ben.
I named myself King once I found that out. And then I grew my beard. And I realized I have his wisdom.
And this guy's like if you took every alpha male I've talked about on this channel and combined them into one. And he might be more self-obsessed than Wes Watson. Like, this dude thinks he's the most famous and interesting person ever, even though his podcast appearances only get like a couple thousand views. And during this podcast he was on, it's so funny. The host tries to ask him what he talks about on social media. And instead of just answering the question, he starts going off about how famous he is and how everybody recognizes him and how people cry when they meet him. And the host seems kind of annoyed that he won't just answer his question.
What do you talk about on social media?
I have realized that because I talk about everything, yes, I go viral. Yes, everywhere I go, people know me. If I walk right now down at the hotels, people recognize me. People take pictures with me. People run up to me, hug me.
What do they say?
Some people cry.
But what for? What are you saying?
But that's the thing, that every little reel has something else. So I talk about religion. I talk about relationship. I talked about women.
And also, like Wes, this guy has been to jail, or at least he claims he's been. I mean, who knows what to believe with him. He claims he's done everything. And it just seems like he copies all these other alpha males. Like, also a big thing with them is waking up early. You know, like the earlier you wake up, the more alpha you are or something. And the host tries to ask him what his day looks like, and he just starts talking about how he wakes up at 2:45 a.m. and goes to sleep at 9. So his response to what his day is like is to talk about when he sleeps. And that's the same schedule Wes claims to have too. You know, he says he also gets up specifically at 2:45. So this guy, he's so unoriginal. You know, he's like a Jewish Wes Watson. He's like Wes Watstein. I think that would be a more appropriate name for him.
So when you're down at home, what do you do all day?
Wake up at 2:45, go to sleep at 9. I don't need more than 6 hours of sleep.
She's gonna lie for you even if she had to.
Women need 7 to 8 hours. As men, because we have testosterone, that is enough for us. We don't need more than 6 hours. And if you say you need more than 6 hours, just sleep faster.
If I catch you out at 10:30 one night, I'm gonna say, huh?
In Vegas, I was out. I didn't sleep right now for 48 hours.
You just don't sleep?
Now I didn't sleep for 48 hours. Just now.
Why would you do that?
And the stories with this guy never end. Like, he thinks he's the most interesting man in the world. You know, I think he was also inspired by those Dos Equis commercials. You know, he saw those and then just started making up stories. And every podcast, he has a new story to tell. And most of them, it seems like he'd be trolling, but he gets offended if you don't believe him. Like, he's trying to be so serious, but his stories are just comical. And he claims to have done it all. And he thinks he's like the toughest man ever too. And he claims when he was 10 years old, his doctors thought his dad was giving him steroids because he was so jacked. And then at 13, he slammed his dad through a coffee table. And then at one point when he was older, he ended up getting in a fight and he beat up 30 guys at once.
When I was 10, my dad took me to the doctor and he was like, what did you do to this kid? Are you giving him steroids? He's like, no, the kid doesn't stop lifting things, doesn't stop doing pull-ups, push-ups. So I don't know what to do with him. But as I was working out, I realized that my soul was higher than my body and I wanted to expand my body so much so my soul will fit inside and will not feel claustrophobic.
From that point on, my dad knew he couldn't take off. Now I was 13. He picked up a stick, a wooden stick, and he went to hit me over the head. And I did this, and it broke. And then I took it out of his hand, threw it on the floor, kicked him in the leg, picked him up, and threw him on the coffee table. Coffee table broke in half. That's the beauty that we are actually superhuman.
I fought 30 guys at the same time and they couldn't take me out.
You fought 30 guys.
30 guys at the same time. They got to the point that they said, okay, you mother, we're done with you. I just dropped down 30 pounds of muscle because I'm getting ready for this movie. So I have to look super fit and I can't be too big. I could do flips, I could fight. I was a cage fighter. I was doing acrobats as a young man. So for me, all of these things, I want to show them in the movies where people see, okay, this guy is like the Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah, so of course he's also a cage fighter, and now he's trying to be a movie star. So he's got a fascinating life. Like also, I think he has the record for getting kicked out of the most schools. And then he was kicked out of his house, and he was homeless for a little. But then he was charged with murder, apparently, and went to jail, but wasn't convicted.
I was a high school dropout, but I also got kicked out of 17 schools in total. But I never let school get in the way of my education.
Sometimes I used to have like an extra shirt just to lean my head over, but this was perfect for me. Sleeping this way, rolling back this way. This was nice. Sometimes just on my back as well. This was the life, guys. If you think that I had money, I had no money. This was my life. So what you see right there, that's called a ghetto bird. This guy's right here. What I want to share with you is that at some point in time, I was in one of those buses, and I've actually never came down here outside of the time that I was arrested and incarcerated here. I was never here. I've never seen the Twin Towers on the outside.
Yeah, so I guess that's where he was incarcerated. You know, very interesting stuff. He definitely makes it all seem believable. Just like my favorite story of his about how when he was younger, he learned Kung Fu from his local Chinese food store owner. So this guy also thinks he was the Karate Kid. And then at some point, I don't know where this would fit on the timeline, but he also claims he trained with Shaolin monks and they taught him how to become invincible by hitting his head against the wall every day for an hour. And now apparently if you try to kick him in the head, his skull is so strong, it'll break your leg in half.
What I did find was a Chinese restaurant right across the street. When I used to go there, eventually the owner fell in love with me and he said, that kid is special. There it was about 3:30 to 4:30. It was the time that I left school and I would come to him. He would move all of the tables and he would teach me Kung Fu.
That's
and
so
I was
cool.
10 years old. It was different and I loved it. From there, when I got older, I said, I really want to go and train with the Shaolin monks. Then I went out there. First of all, they don't accept you.
How did you get in?
You have to wait outside of the temple. When they let you in, they teach you things that are unbelievable.
And I went and traveled to China and trained with some Shaolin monks. And they explained to me that the strongest part of the body is actually your skull. And if you train your skull for about an hour a day, bang it against the wall, after a year it becomes 4 times thicker than it really is. Which means that you become unstoppable, indestructible. You could punch them, you could kick them in the head. All they have to do is turn the head to wherever you're hitting and they will break any bone in your body.
Yeah, so now him fighting 30 guys seems a little more believable. You know, I don't think he even had to throw a punch. Everyone just injured themselves from trying to hit him. That's how much of a badass this guy is. And not only does he have the strongest skull, he also has the strongest pinky nail. He likes to show that off too.
My pinky nail is long. The biggest question is that a nail? When you have long fingernails, especially the pinky, it's the sign of wealth. And if it doesn't break and it's strong and it's powerful, then it means you're going to be wealthier. I have longer pinky nails than my girl. Literally, we measure it. And hers break all the time. But who's the wealthy one? You know what I mean? And this is a very strong pinky nail.
And he claims to be worth $50 million, and he made his money from sales, real estate, crypto, casinos, nightclubs, you know, everything you'd expect. And also, of course, coaching services, where you can also learn how to slam your head against a wall and grow your pinky nail, if that's something you're interested in. And I think his target demographic is kids who are failing school. You know, he does the Andrew Tate thing where he's always trying to convince kids school's a waste of time and they're better off trying to start their own business, which they can learn how to do by signing up for their coaching program.
If you're a young boy and you're in a situation where you're an F student, let me tell you something. You got a bright future, buddy. You see, an A student is the perfect employee. He works for me and he does his job perfectly. And then you got the F students. The F students are inventors. They're so creative that they couldn't sit in class. They couldn't listen because whatever people were trying to put in their head, they knew it was
fucking bullshit.
So also this guy, he's very pro-Israel, and he alludes to being a Mossad agent. And that's what he's talking about in the clip I played in the beginning, where he says he has to go and take out terrorists sometimes. But when he mentions it on this podcast, the host is like, dude, nobody's going to believe all this shit. Because he brings up how he worked for some secret counterterrorism group. But of course, he can't go into any detail. So I don't know why he'd bring it up. But he's just trying to think of whatever he can to sound interesting.
I told you I used to work in counterterrorism for over a decade. Remember that? When we talked?
A long time ago?
Yeah?
No.
Yeah. When we talked a year and a half ago, I told you I worked in counterterrorism for over a decade. So for me, I wasn't allowed to be even on social media or any of these things. And even today, I'm not allowed to even speak about what unit I was in, things like that, for the next 5 years. I can't share it with anybody, but
there's a lot of people out there that would say, now that's where I'm calling bullshit.
That's fine. Nobody cares.
And
I don't
it's
care.
convenient that you can't talk about it, so no one can verify.
Yeah. Well, there's units that are called invisible units.
I'm not doubting you. I always give everyone the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I don't care.
But if I were to question it, I would say, well, wait a minute. At 17, you were homeless. At 18, right. 19, you were cleaning carpets. Then you got into telemarketing. Then you went, then you started doing real estate, and you started investing here and there, and that was only 10 years ago. So when was the counterterrorism?
Yeah.
And who is it for? The Israeli army?
Well, it's Israel and the United States. You work with both.
That's the CIA.
That's because, no. Counterterrorism is a little bit different.
But you had to be with somebody.
Yeah, but can't talk about who I was with. Come on.
All right.
You want them to grill me? Yeah. But when you hold dual citizenship, when it's Israeli and American citizenship, I could do a lot of things that other people can't do. I go a lot of places that other people can't do.
And this guy does seem like an industry plant. I mean, he came out of nowhere and has most likely a completely made up backstory. And he's also always posting Israeli propaganda. Like after Israel bombed Iran, he made this video claiming America actually bombed them.
United States just bombed the fuck out of Iran. And you know why? Because the Iranian regime should never, ever, ever own a nuclear weapon. Of course, the United States is not going to want them to have a nuclear weapon. You cannot rely on these people. They are irresponsible. They will attack, and when they will attack to kill everybody. Oh, and you're going to say, wait, it was the state of Israel. Did you hear yourself? The state of Israel. Israel was never a country. It's a state. Why? Because your dumbass can't figure that out. But it's the 51st state of the United States of America. Everything America says to do, Israel does. Israel does all the dirty work for you guys.
Yeah, so him being an Israeli-backed media personality, that's actually somewhat believable. I don't think he's an assassin that kills terrorists, but he could easily be a Mossad agent that's trying to influence the Andrew Tate demographic. That's actually like the most believable part of this guy's story. But let me know what you guys think. And I just posted a big video on Patreon that people really seem to enjoy about how Tim Dillon exposed Joe Rogan's handler. And also Wes Watson, he recently went on this really racist rant I talked about. And Rogan insulted Guy Fieri's dad a couple weeks ago on his podcast, which was hilarious. And there are over 130 other exclusive videos. There's so much to go through. So if you're a fan of the channel, make sure you check it out. It's definitely worth it. There'll be a link in the description.